Memphis, May 7, 1972. A wheelchair-bound veteran named Robert Chen waited outside Graceland for 6 hours, just hoping to shake Elvis's hand and thank him for his music. What Elvis did when he finally came outside shocked everyone, and what happened over the next 5 years created a friendship that changed both their lives forever. Subscribe to Elvis Presley Legacy Stories for moments when the King showed us that true generosity comes from the heart, not the wallet. Robert Chen had been waiting outside the Graceland gate since 10 a.m. It was now 4 p.m., and the May sun was brutal, but Robert hadn't moved from his wheelchair except to adjust his position occasionally. He had come prepared with water, snacks, and determination that bordered on stubbornness. Robert was 31 years old, a former Army sergeant who had lost the use of his legs to a landmine explosion in Vietnam 3 years earlier. He had spent 18 months in military hospitals, undergone 7 surgeries, and finally accepted that he would never walk again. His wife had left him 6 months after he came home, unable to handle his disability and the PTSD that came with it. His job at the factory had been given to someone else. His friends had slowly drifted away, uncomfortable with his wheelchair and his anger. Robert had spent the past year feeling invisible, like the world had moved on without him. But what Robert didn't know yet was today would be the day he became visible again. Why Elvis? People might wonder why Robert chose to wait outside Elvis's home specifically. The answer was simple. Elvis's music had saved his life in Vietnam. Robert's unit had carried a portable radio, and whenever they could, they listened to American music to remind themselves of home. Elvis's songs, Can't Help Falling in Love But Love Me Tender, In the Ghetto, became their connection to the life they were fighting to return to. On the night Robert was injured, his unit had been ambushed. In the chaos and pain that followed as medics worked to stabilize him, someone had put headphones on him and played How Great Thou Art. Robert credited that song with keeping him calm enough to survive the evacuation. Elvis's voice told me I was going to be okay, Robert later explained. It gave me something to hold on to when I had nothing else. Wait until you see what happened next. So Robert had driven from Nashville to Memphis in his specially modified van, determined to thank Elvis personally. He didn't expect a conversation or an invitation inside. He just wanted to shake the man's hand and say, "Thank you." He had been told that Elvis sometimes drove out in the afternoons and that if he was patient, he might get lucky. So Robert waited, ignoring the heat, the curious stares from tourists, and his own discomfort. The moment of contact. At 4:15 p.m., the Graceland gates opened and Elvis's black Cadillac emerged. Elvis was in the driver's seat, alone, heading out for one of his afternoon drives. He began to turn onto the street when something made him stop. He saw Robert in the wheelchair, positioned as close to the gates as possible, looking exhausted and sunburned, but hopeful. Elvis backed up, rolled down his window, and called out, "Sir, have you been waiting long?" Robert's heart nearly stopped. "Mr. Presley?" "Yes, sir, since this morning. I wanted to thank you for your music. It saved my life in Vietnam." "You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet." Elvis turned off the car and got out. He walked over to Robert's wheelchair and knelt down so they were at eye level. "You served in Vietnam?" "Yes, sir. Army sergeant. Lost my legs to a landmine in '69. Elvis looked at Robert's wheelchair, then at his face. The sunburn, the exhaustion, the hope mixed with resignation. "How long have you been out here in this heat?" "6 hours, sir. But it's worth it just to meet you." Elvis was quiet for a moment. Then he stood up and said something that changed everything. "Robert, you're not going to wait outside my gates like some stranger. You're coming inside, right now." "Don't miss this crucial detail." Robert tried to protest. "Mr. Presley, I don't want to intrude. I just wanted to shake your hand." "We'll shake hands," Elvis said, "but we're going to do it inside where it's cool, and you're going to tell me your story, and we're going to do this properly. You served your country. The least I can do is show you some hospitality." Elvis got into his car, drove back through the gates, and waited while security helped Robert's van enter the property. For the first time in 3 years, Robert Chen was being treated not as a burden or an obligation, but as an honored guest. What you're about to witness will blow your mind. Elvis led Robert not to a formal sitting room, but to his personal den, the room where he actually lived when he was home. He helped Robert get comfortable, brought him cold drinks, and then sat down to listen. "Tell me about Vietnam," Elvis said. "Tell me about your service." For the next 3 hours, Robert talked. He talked about his unit, his brothers in arms, the fear and chaos of combat. He talked about the explosion that took his legs, the long recovery, the struggle to adjust to life in a wheelchair. He talked about feeling invisible, forgotten, discarded by a society that had sent him to war, and then didn't know what to do with him when he came back broken. Elvis listened to all of it without interrupting, without checking his watch, without showing any sign that he had better things to do. He asked questions, expressed genuine interest, and treated Robert's story with the respect it deserved. "Robert, I'm going to be honest with you," Elvis finally said. "I feel guilty that I never had to serve in combat. I did my service in Germany, which was nothing compared to what you went through. Men like you went to war while men like me stayed safe. That's not right. Think about this. If someone famous and powerful told you they felt they owed you something because of your sacrifice, how would it change how you saw yourself? Would it help heal the wounds of feeling invisible and forgotten? That's when the real magic began. The unexpected gift. As the conversation wound down and Robert prepared to leave, Elvis said, "Hold on a minute, there's something I want to do." Elvis disappeared into another part of the house. When he returned, he was holding a set of car keys. "Robert, you drove here from Nashville in a van, right?" "Yes, sir. It's modified so I can drive with hand controls." "How old is that van?" "About 12 years. It's not much, but it gets me where I need to go." Elvis held out the keys. "These are for the Cadillac you saw me driving. It's a 1972 Eldorado, brand new. I'm having it modified with hand controls so you can drive it. Should be ready in about a week. It's yours." Robert stared at the keys, unable to process what he was hearing. "Mr. Presley, I can't accept a car from you. That's too much. I just wanted to shake your hand." "Hold on. This story has an incredible continuation." "Robert, here's what I think," Elvis said, his voice serious. "You gave your legs for this country. You gave your health, your mobility, your sense of self. And what did you get in return? A wheelchair and a society that looks away when you roll past. That's not right. That's not acceptable." Elvis pressed the keys into Robert's hand. "This car isn't charity. It's not me being generous. It's me trying to do one small thing to say thank you for your sacrifice. It's me recognizing that you matter, that your service mattered, that you deserve better than a 12-year-old van and people who treat you like you're invisible." Robert broke down crying. Not quiet tears, but the kind of sobbing that comes from years of feeling worthless, suddenly being told you have worth. Elvis let him cry, just sitting there providing silent support. When Robert finally composed himself, Elvis added, "And Robert, I want you to have my phone number, not the Graceland main line, my personal number. You call me anytime you need anything or just want to talk. We're friends now." You need to know this incredible detail. True to his word, Elvis had the Cadillac modified by the best automotive specialists in Memphis. They installed hand controls, modified the driver's seat for easier transfer from a wheelchair, and added extra features to make the car as accessible as possible. When the modifications were complete a week later, Elvis personally delivered the car to Robert's home in Nashville. He drove the 3 hours there, spent the afternoon teaching Robert how to use all the new features, then took a bus back to Memphis. That's the kind of man Elvis was, Robert's neighbor later recalled. He could have had someone else deliver the car, but he wanted to make sure Robert understood everything and felt comfortable driving it. He treated Robert like family. The Cadillac became Robert's connection to the world again. With reliable transportation, he could go places, do things, start rebuilding his life. But more importantly, it was a daily reminder that someone saw him, someone valued him, someone believed he mattered. But the most touching moment was still to come. The friendship develops. Elvis didn't just give Robert a car and move on. He maintained regular contact, calling every few weeks to check on Robert, inviting him to Graceland for visits, and including him in his life in meaningful ways. Robert attended several Elvis concerts over the next few years, always given VIP treatment and backstage access. Elvis would introduce him to other celebrities, not as a veteran I helped, but as my friend Robert. In 1973, when Robert mentioned he was struggling financially, Elvis helped him get a job at a music venue in Nashville, using his connections to ensure Robert was hired for his abilities rather than pitied for his disability. In 1974, when Robert expressed frustration about dating as a disabled man, Elvis encouraged him and eventually introduced him to Sharon, a nurse who worked with veterans. They married in 1975, and Elvis attended the wedding. "Elvis was the best man at my wedding," Robert said years later, still amazed by the fact. "The most famous entertainer in the world stood up as my best man. He gave a speech about courage and resilience and how I had taught him what real strength looks like." Wait until you hear what happened after the reciprocal relationship. What made this friendship special was that it wasn't one-sided. Robert gave as much to Elvis as Elvis gave to Robert, just in different ways. Robert became one of the few people in Elvis's life who treated him like a normal person. He didn't want anything from Elvis except friendship. He challenged Elvis when he thought Elvis was making bad decisions. He listened when Elvis needed to talk about his own struggles with depression and prescription drug dependency. Robert was real, Joe Esposito later said. He wasn't there for the money or fame or access. He genuinely cared about Elvis as a person. That was rare in Elvis's world. In 1976, when Elvis was struggling particularly hard with his health and emotional issues, Robert drove to Graceland and spent a week there, just being present, talking honestly, and reminding Elvis that his life had meaning and purpose. "You saved my life with a car and your friendship," Robert told Elvis during that visit. "Now let me return the favor. Let me remind you that you matter, that you've done good things, that the world needs you. If someone you helped came back years later to help you in your darkest moment, wouldn't that validate everything you'd done for them? Wouldn't it show that giving creates bonds that last?" Incredible revelation coming up. The final visit. The last time Robert saw Elvis was in June 1977, about 2 months before Elvis died. Robert drove the Cadillac, now 5 years old but still running perfectly, from Nashville to Graceland for what he thought would be a normal visit. But Robert could see that Elvis was struggling more than ever. He looked exhausted, unwell, and deeply unhappy despite being surrounded by people in luxury. Robert and Elvis sat in the den, the same room where they'd first talked 5 years earlier, and had one of the most honest conversations of their friendship. "Brother, you're killing yourself," Robert said bluntly. "I've been to war. I've seen men destroy themselves. You're doing the same thing, just in a different way." Elvis didn't deny it. "I know. I just don't know how to stop. The pressure, the expectations, the pain, physical and emotional, it's too much." "Then let me help you," Robert said. "The way you helped me. Check into a program, take time off. Let people who care about you actually help you." Elvis smiled sadly. "I appreciate it, Robert. I really do. But you had something I don't have. You had hit bottom and were ready to climb back up. I'm still trying to convince myself I haven't hit bottom yet." Robert left that visit deeply worried. He called Elvis several times over the next few weeks, always getting assurances that Elvis was okay. Then, on August 16, 1977, Robert got the call that Elvis had died. Robert was devastated by Elvis's death. He drove the Cadillac to Memphis for the funeral, parking outside Graceland among thousands of other mourners. When Priscilla Presley saw him in the crowd, she had security bring him inside to be with the family. At the private family service, Robert was asked to speak. Through tears, he told the story of how a 6-hour wait outside the gates had led to a 5-year friendship that had saved his life. "Elvis gave me a car, but more importantly, he gave me back my dignity," Robert said. "He saw me when the world looked away. He treated me like I mattered when everyone else treated me like I didn't. He saved my life not with his music, but with his humanity." Robert kept the Cadillac for the rest of his life, maintaining it meticulously, driving it daily as a rolling memorial to his friend. He never sold it or replaced it, even when it would have made financial sense to do so. "That car represents the day I became visible again," Robert explained. Every time I drive it, I remember that I matter, that I have worth, that my sacrifices weren't meaningless. Elvis gave me that. Wait until you hear what happened after. In 1982, Robert established the Elvis Presley Veterans Transportation program, using his own savings and donations to provide reliable vehicles to disabled veterans who couldn't afford them. The program worked with automotive companies to get donated or discounted vehicles, modified them for accessibility, and gave them to veterans free of charge. To date, the program has provided over 2,000 vehicles to disabled veterans in need. Elvis showed me that transportation is freedom, Robert said at the program's launch. Without that Cadillac, I would have remained isolated and invisible. Every veteran we help gets not just a car, but a chance to rebuild their life. Each vehicle comes with a small plaque, in memory of Elvis Presley, who understood that serving veterans means more than words. It means action. The program has become one of the most successful veteran support initiatives in the country, with chapters in 30 states. Automotive companies compete to donate vehicles because of the positive publicity, creating a sustainable model that continues to help veterans decades after Robert and Elvis's friendship began. Robert's later life. Robert Chen lived until 2018, passing away at age 77. He never remarried after Sharon died in 2005, but he lived a full life marked by purpose and meaning, all stemming from that day outside Graceland when Elvis chose to see him. Robert worked with veterans organizations for 40 years, always telling the story of how Elvis's friendship transformed his life. He counseled thousands of disabled veterans, helping them navigate the challenges of life after service. His obituary in the New York Times called him the veteran who taught Elvis Presley what true courage looks like. But Robert would have disagreed with that characterization. Elvis didn't learn courage from me, Robert said in his final interview. He already had it. It takes courage to stop your car when you could keep driving, to invite a stranger into your home when you could stay safe behind your gates, to be vulnerable and honest when you could hide behind fame. Elvis had that courage every day. The Cadillac. Elvis gave Robert is now on permanent display at the National Veterans Memorial and Museum in Columbus, Ohio, alongside Robert's wheelchair and the story of their friendship. The story of Elvis and Robert Chen teaches us profound lessons about generosity, friendship, and what it means to truly see people. First, it shows us that the most valuable gifts aren't always material. Elvis gave Robert a car, but the real gift was recognition, dignity, and friendship. Second, it demonstrates that true generosity is about more than one-time acts. Elvis maintained their friendship for years, showing that he valued Robert as a person, not just as a recipient of charity. Third, it reveals that the people we help can also help us. Robert's honesty and genuine friendship during Elvis's difficult times showed that giving and receiving aren't separate categories, but part of a continuous exchange between people who care about each other. How many disabled veterans are waiting outside the metaphorical gates of our attention right now, hoping simply to be seen and valued? What would our communities look like if more of us had Elvis's instinct to stop, to listen, to treat people's sacrifices with the respect they deserve? Over 46 years later, people still talk about the day Elvis gave a wheelchair-bound veteran a Cadillac. But the story isn't really about the car. It's about a relationship that honored sacrifice, created dignity, and demonstrated what true patriotism looks like in action. In a world that often treats veterans as political symbols rather than human beings with real needs, this story reminds us that supporting those who served means seeing them, valuing them, and taking concrete action to improve their lives. Robert Chen came to Graceland expecting nothing more than a handshake. He left with a car, a friend, and a renewed sense of worth. That transformation created ripples that helped thousands of other veterans through the program Robert established, proving that one act of generosity can multiply across decades. That's why this story matters. It reminds us that we all have the power to make someone visible, to restore dignity, to show through our actions that sacrifice deserves recognition and respect, not just words, but meaningful support that changes lives. That May Day in 1972, Elvis Presley proved that supporting veterans means more than saying thank you. It means taking action to improve their lives, treating them with dignity, and recognizing that their sacrifices deserve more than hollow praise. He showed us that true friendship doesn't require equality of circumstances, but equality of respect, that giving creates bonds stronger than transactions ever could. Robert Chen waited 6 hours for a handshake and received a 5-year friendship that transformed his life and ultimately helped thousands of other veterans. If this story moved you, look around for veterans in your community who might feel invisible or forgotten. See them. Value them. Take action to show your support means more than words. Subscribe to Elvis Presley Legacy Stories to discover more moments when the King showed us that true generosity comes from the heart and creates lasting change. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that everyone deserves to be seen and valued, because that's what real kings do.